I won't take any food from you. Look at yourself. Why don't you just stay at home?
Imagine a world where every cruel word echoes, and the person you dismissed as invisible sees everything. Inside the glittering walls of the Grand Astoria Hotel, a wealthy guest delivers cutting insults and racist remarks to a quiet waitress, believing herself untouchable. But beneath the calm surface, a storm is brewing. The waitress isn't just serving tea, she's serving justice. Discover the chilling, unexpected revenge meticulously crafted in the shadows. A revenge so perfect, so devastatingly sweet, that no one could have ever predicted its source. What happens when the underestimated become the architects of downfall? Watch until the final, shocking reveal. If you love this twist-filled mystery and the satisfying sting of justice, smash that subscribe button. Subscribing means you won't miss our next deep dive into suspense, secrets, and stories where the unexpected strikes back. We drop new mysteries like this every day. Got chills? Tell us where you're watching from. Comment your city name below and let us know how far this story reached. The polished marble floors of the Grand Astoria Hotel stretched like a frozen, obsidian lake, reflecting the dizzying sparkle of crystal chandeliers suspended far above. The air hummed with the low murmur of wealthy guests, the clink of fine china, and the scent of expensive perfume layered over polished wood and fresh lilies. Near the bank of elevators, a woman stood out, radiating an aura of impatience sharp enough to cut glass. Evelyn Thorne. Her posture was rigid, her designer clothes impeccable, her blonde hair styled into a helmet of perfection. Sharp cheekbones framed a face currently twisted into a sneer of profound dissatisfaction. She tapped the pointed toe of an exorbitantly priced shoe against the gleaming floor, a metronome counting down her dwindling tolerance. Beside her, a harried-looking man clutched several glossy shopping bags, shifting his weight nervously. Across the lobby, moving with a quiet, efficient grace that seemed almost invisible against the opulent backdrop, was Janine Parker. Her dark skin absorbed the golden light pouring from the fixtures, making her crisp white uniform and neat bun appear even more stark. Her expression was a mask of professional calm, though the slight tension in her shoulders hinted at the strain of a long shift serving demanding patrons. Her eyes, usually warm and observant, were carefully neutral as she refilled water glasses at a recently vacated table. Evelyn's cold, assessing gaze followed Janine's movements as the waitress finished her task and began walking towards the elevator bank, likely heading back towards the staff corridors. Finally, Evelyn declared, her voice pitched just loud enough to carry, though she addressed her companion. Honestly, Robert, the standards in this place are slipping faster than a cheap silk stocking. Some people simply don't grasp the concept of real service. It requires a certain innate understanding, a refinement that can't be faked. Standards inevitably plummet when certain elements are allowed behind the scenes. The insult, veiled in vague language yet razor-sharp in its intent, landed in the cool, conditioned air. Janine didn't visibly react. She didn't flinch or look up, but her spine straightened almost imperceptibly, a subtle stiffening that spoke volumes to anyone who knew how to read the language of quiet dignity. She continued her path, reaching the elevators just as a set of doors slid open with a soft chime. Evelyn swept inside, holding the door open with a single, disdainfully extended finger, her gaze fixed on Janine. "Well?" she demanded, her voice dripping with condescension. "Are you attending this floor, or are you merely here to decorate the lobby? My room service order was placed precisely 57 minutes ago. I expect competence, even if basic courtesy and timeliness are evidently beyond your capabilities." The implication hung heavy, ugly. Janine stepped into the elevator, keeping her eyes lowered, her posture subservient. The door slid shut on Evelyn's triumphant sneer, sealing them in the mirrored, suffocating space. Robert cleared his throat awkwardly, staring at his shoes. Evelyn ignored him, tapping her foot again as the elevator ascended smoothly. Janine remained perfectly still, a statue in uniform, the only sign of life the steady, controlled rhythm of her breathing. The air crackled with unspoken contempt. Later, pushing a meticulously arranged room service trolley towards Suite 1201, Janine's professional mask was firmly back in place. The tray held delicate finger sandwiches, a silver pot of tea, a flute of chilled champagne, and a single red rose in a tiny crystal vase, the epitome of Grand Astoria luxury. Janine knocked softly. The door was yanked open by Evelyn, already radiating irritation. "About time," Evelyn snapped, stepping back only enough to allow the trolley entry. She didn't offer thanks. Instead, she scrutinized the setup with a critical eye, her lip curling. "Careful with that," she barked as Janine lifted the champagne flute to place it on the ornate coffee table. "Those are Baccarat crystal, not the plastic tumblers you're doubtless used to handling. Honestly, the presentation lacks any real finesse. It's just thrown together." But then, she added, her voice dropping to a poisonous purr, "some things can't be taught, can they? A certain innate clumsiness. It's rather typical." Typical. Asterisk the word landed like a physical blow, heavy with its ugly, racist subtext. This time, Janine lifted her gaze. Her dark eyes met Evelyn's icy blue ones. There was no anger there, no visible hurt. Instead, they held a profound stillness, a depth that felt unsettling, like looking into a calm, deep well. "Is there anything else I can assist you with, Miss Thorne?" Janine's voice was low, smooth, perfectly modulated, betraying nothing of the storm that might be brewing beneath the surface. Evelyn waved a dismissive hand, already turning her back, drawn towards the panoramic window overlooking the city skyline. "Just remove yourself, and try to cultivate a sense of urgency next time. Your pace is positively languid, dreadfully inefficient." The dismissal was absolute, final. The door clicked shut softly behind Janine, leaving her alone in the plush, silent corridor. The insult, typical, languid, innate clumsiness, echoed in the thick, expensive air. The grandeur of the hotel felt suddenly oppressive. Janine didn't move for a long moment. She stood perfectly still, staring at the ornate brass number 1201 on Evelyn Thorne's door. Her expression remained outwardly calm, but a subtle shift had occurred. The practiced neutrality had melted away, replaced by something far more potent, a cold, calculating resolve. The sharp sting of humiliation was there. Yes, a familiar ache, but it was being rapidly forged into something else, a weapon. Evelyn Thorne, with her casual cruelty and towering arrogance, had made a grave error. She mistook quiet dignity for weakness, professional restraint for subservience. She believed Janine was invisible, insignificant, someone she could belittle without consequence. She believed her wealth and privilege were an impenetrable shield. Janine Parker knew better. She knew the power of observation, of patience, of meticulous planning. She knew the vulnerabilities hidden beneath the brittle shell of entitlement. The revenge wouldn't be a shout or a slap. It wouldn't be crude or obvious. It would be patient. It would be precise. It would unfold like a slow, inevitable shadow, born from Evelyn's own carelessness and Janine's unseen intelligence. And it would be so utterly unexpected, so completely detached from the quiet woman in the uniform, that Evelyn Thorne wouldn't see it coming until it was far, far too late. The sweetness of it would lie in its absolute invisibility and the sheer perfection of its execution. Janine finally turned away from the door, a ghost slipping down the corridor, her footsteps silent on the plush carpet. The game had begun. The following morning dawned bright and clear, the city bustling below the Grand Astoria's towering height. Evelyn Thorne descended to the lobby like a storm cloud descending a mountain. She radiated brittle energy, her displeasure a tangible force field. She barked orders at the bewildered concierge about impossible flight changes, snapped at a young bellhop whose sleeve dared to brush too close to her pristine cream coat, and finally settled like a displeased queen into a plush velvet armchair strategically positioned near the grand piano. She pulled out her phone, a sleek, impossibly thin model that cost more than Janine's monthly rent, and began jabbing at the screen with sharp, manicured nails. Her voice, though not a shout, carried easily in the open space a low, venomous stream directed at the device. Honestly, Marcus, if you can't manage the simplest acquisition without constant hand-holding, perhaps we need to reassess your position entirely, she hissed into the phone. The numbers are off by 0.3%. 0.3. It's basic arithmetic. Do I have to do everything myself? It's like dealing with incompetence on a global scale, truly third-world service standards. She paused, listening, her expression one of profound disgust. No, just fix it. And tell Henderson his latest proposal reads like it was drafted by a semi-literate chimpanzee. Utterly embarrassing. She ended the call with a sharp stab of her thumb. Distracted by her own fury, Evelyn suddenly stood up, the movement abrupt. "Where is that coffee?" she announced to no one in particular, scanning the lobby with an imperious glare. "Is it brewed from actual beans or ground despair?" She marched off towards the coffee bar, leaving her expensive phone lying casually, screen down, on the small marble-top table beside her chair. Forgotten in her self-important rage, Janine was clearing delicate china teacups and saucers from a table nearby. Her movements were unhurried, efficient, blending into the background hum of the lobby. She saw the abandoned phone. She saw the moment of vulnerability, the carelessness born of absolute certainty that her possessions were inviolable. As Janine approached Evelyn's vacated seating area, her cleaning cloth in hand, her actions were seamless, choreographed. She wiped the polished marble surface where Evelyn's coffee cup had left a faint ring. Her cloth glided smoothly, deliberately, over the phone lying there. For a mere heartbeat, the dark fabric obscured the device completely. Then the cloth moved on, continuing its path across the table, leaving the phone exactly where it had been, undisturbed. No one noticed the slight pause, the calculated brush of fabric. No one ever really noticed the quiet waitress diligently performing her duties. But Janine noticed everything. Over months, she had become an unseen chronicler of Evelyn Thorne's life within the hotel's gilded cage. She'd noticed Evelyn's habit of loudly discussing confidential business deals and personal vendettas over breakfast in the orchid room, oblivious to nearby tables. She noticed the crumpled receipts Evelyn carelessly discarded in the lobby waste bins, receipts bearing sensitive account numbers and supplier names. She noticed the unlocked tablet perpetually left charging on the suite's desk during evening turn-down service, the screen often glowing with emails left open. Evelyn Thorne lived in a bubble of self-importance, convinced the world revolved solely around her whims, and that people like Janine were furniture, functional, perhaps, but devoid of perception or threat. That arrogance, that blindness, was her fatal flaw. It was the chink in her expensive armor, the unlocked door Janine had been patiently waiting for. Later, in the fluorescent-lit quiet of the staff locker room, the sounds of the opulent lobby replaced by the hum of industrial ventilation, Janine retrieved a small, unremarkable phone from her bag. It was a cheap, encrypted burner model, hidden beneath neatly folded spare uniforms. Her fingers moved with practiced calm over the small keypad. She didn't need Evelyn's physical phone. She needed what resided on it, what Evelyn carelessly broadcast into the digital ether. Using fragments of information gathered through months of silent observation, the easily guessed password hint gleaned from Evelyn loudly calling her spoiled poodle Muffy in the lobby, the predictable pattern of her movements between suite, spa, and dining room. The snippets of conversation revealing her mother's maiden name, Janine navigated the invisible pathways. She accessed Evelyn Thorne's cloud storage, the digital vault where Evelyn undoubtedly believed her secrets were safe. On the tiny, unassuming screen, a digital landscape unfolded. Folders labeled Thorne Industries, Confidential, Project Chimera, Mergers and Acquisitions, Personal Finance, Private Correspondence. It was a treasure trove of arrogance and carelessness. Janine's expression remained impassive, a serene mask, but her eyes, focused intently on the screen, held the sharp, unwavering intensity of a master strategist surveying a conquered territory. The first, silent, utterly undetectable move in an intricate game of retribution had been made. Evelyn Thorne, likely sipping champagne in her suite or berating another underling, remained blissfully, arrogantly unaware. The quiet woman she considered beneath notice, the woman whose dignity she had casually trampled, was now holding the keys to her meticulously constructed, privileged world. The dismantling had begun, piece by invisible digital piece. The true sting, the devastating consequence of her cruelty, wouldn't be felt immediately. It would arrive subtly, unexpectedly, like a delayed poison, leaving Evelyn bewildered and grasping at shadows, utterly unable to trace the source of her ruin back to the unassuming hotel waitress. The sweetness of Janine's revenge lay precisely in its invisibility and its utter, devastating perfection. The silence of the staff locker room felt heavy, charged with the weight of what Janine Parker now held in her hands. The tiny burner phone screen illuminated her impassive face, casting sharp shadows in the sterile fluorescent light. Folders upon folders. Thorne Industries, Confidential, Project Chimera, mergers and acquisitions, personal finance, private correspondence sprawled before her digital gaze. It wasn't just access, it was a blueprint to Evelyn Thorne's entire existence. Janine didn't rush. She scrolled with deliberate calm, her eyes absorbing the structure, the carelessness evident in the labeling, the sheer volume of sensitive data stored with the arrogance of someone who believed themselves untouchable. One folder drew her immediate attention: Project Chimera. Inside, nestled amongst complex financial projections and acquisition strategies for a smaller, family-owned tech firm named Ethel Innovations, lay something far more explosive. Email chains, brutally honest and laced with Evelyn's trademark venom, detailed her true motivations. Phrases jumped out. Asterisk, a nest of sentimental fools clinging to outdated ideals. Their ethical tech slogan is marketable, but their leadership is weak, emotional. Easily crushed. Asterisk, another email to her lawyer. Asterisk, find every leverage point. Dig up dirt on the CEO. I hear his son has difficulties. Use it. The price we offer is an insult, and they'll take it because they won't have a choice. Asterisk, the most damning was a memo outlining a deliberate plan to bankrupt Ethel Innovations after acquisition, liquidating assets for pure profit while discarding the workforce and the founder's life savings. Asterisk, sentimentality is a disease. Asterisk, Evelyn had typed. Asterisk, cut it out. Cleanse the books. Maximum extraction. Asterisk, a cold, focused anger, honed by years of swallowing indignities, settled over Janine. This wasn't just business. It was predation disguised as strategy. It mirrored Evelyn's casual cruelty in the lobby, amplified on a corporate scale. Janine's finger hovered. Revenge wasn't about blind destruction. It was about precision, about using Evelyn's own weapons against her. Project Chimera was the perfect vector. Meanwhile, Evelyn Thorne reclined in the hotel's exclusive Serenity Spa, enveloped in the scent of eucalyptus and the gentle murmur of water features. A therapist kneaded her shoulders, but Evelyn's mind was elsewhere, flicking through news feeds on her tablet. A notification popped up, an anonymous email sent to her lawyer, Marcus. The subject line was chillingly simple: Ethel Innovations knows. Evelyn frowned, a flicker of unease breaking through her usual composure. She dismissed it. Marcus handled nuisance threats. Probably some disgruntled employee. She took a deep breath, inhaling the expensive aromatherapy oils, pushing the intrusion aside. The world outside her bubble was just noise. Janine, however, was orchestrating that noise. Using the burner phone and anonymizing layers she'd meticulously researched, she became a ghost in the machine. She didn't hack, not exactly. She facilitated leaks. A carefully edited excerpt from Evelyn's weak, emotional leadership email, stripped of identifying markers but retaining the vicious tone, found its way onto a niche finance forum known for its investigative bent. Another snippet, hinting at the planned post-acquisition asset stripping, was anonymously messaged to a tech journalist at a reputable but aggressive online publication known for exposing corporate malfeasance. The seeds were small, deliberately incomplete, designed to spark curiosity, not immediate panic. The journalist, Ben Carter, received the message late at night. Checked Thorn Industries' Project Chimera. Ask about the cleanse. Intrigued, he fired off a preliminary email to Thorn Industries' PR department, seeking comment on allegations concerning Thorn Industries' acquisition strategy for Ethel Innovations, specifically references to cleansing assets post-merger. The response was immediate and predictably arrogant, drafted by Evelyn herself and sent via Marcus. Thorn Industries operates with the highest ethical standards. Any suggestion otherwise is baseless slander spread by parties threatened by our legitimate business interests. Project Chimera is a standard consolidation strategy. We have no further comment on anonymous, malicious fabrications. The denial was too sharp, too defensive. It landed in Ben Carter's inbox like a red flag. He started digging. Janine's next move was more intimate. Deep within Evelyn's personal finance folder, she found scanned documents detailing offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, accounts meticulously structured to avoid scrutiny and hold funds siphoned from various Thorn Industries ventures. The amounts were staggering. Janine didn't touch the money. That was too direct, too traceable. Instead, she focused on the source documents, the account numbers, the holding company names, ridiculously obvious pseudonyms like Muffy Holdings Limited, and the dates of significant undeclared transfers. This information, carefully packaged, didn't go to journalists yet. It went somewhere quieter, more bureaucratic, and infinitely more patient. A tip line. Back in Suite 1201, Evelyn's irritation was mounting for different reasons. Her usual morning latte tasted bitter. The newspaper delivery was late, and Marcus kept calling with ridiculous questions prompted by that journalist's fishing expedition. Honestly, Marcus, handle it, she snapped into the phone, pacing before the floor-to-ceiling windows. Feed Carter some bland corporate speak about synergy and growth. He has nothing. It's just noise. She slammed the phone down. A faint tremor, unfamiliar and unwelcome, ran through her hand. The anonymous email, the journalist, a coincidence? She poured herself a large glass of scotch, the expensive burn doing little to soothe the prickle of unease crawling up her spine. The world felt suddenly less predictable. Downstairs, Janine performed her duties with the same quiet efficiency. She served afternoon tea to a group of elderly ladies, refilled water pitchers in the orchid room, cleared a table where a couple had just gotten engaged. She was the invisible engine of the hotel's smooth operation. Evelyn Thorne stormed through the lobby later that afternoon, heading for a meeting, her face a mask of tightly controlled fury. She barked at the valet, nearly collided with a guest, and didn't even glance at Janine, who was polishing silverware nearby. Evelyn's world was narrowing to her own mounting frustrations, her sense of control subtly fraying at the edges. She saw the staff, as always, as obstacles or furniture, utterly unaware that the source of her growing disquiet moved silently among them. The first ripple of consequence arrived subtly, like a stone dropped in a distant pond. Ben Carter's preliminary article appeared online. Thorn Industries Chimera, aggressive acquisition or predatory play. Whispers of cleansing raise ethical concerns. It cited anonymous sources and Thorn Industries' strong denial, but the phrasing was skeptical, the implication clear. It wasn't front-page news, but it was out there. Within Thorn Industries, a low murmur started. Board members who hadn't questioned Evelyn's ruthless tactics before began exchanging uneasy glances. The CEO of Ethel Innovations, alerted by a colleague about the article, called Marcus, his voice trembling with newfound defiance. "We've seen the piece. We demand full transparency on your plans for our company post-acquisition. Our lawyers are reviewing everything. Evelyn received the update in her suite. Demand? She shrieked, her voice cracking. They demand? They should be groveling for the lifeline we're throwing them. She hurled a crystal paperweight across the room, where it shattered against the marble fireplace with a violence that echoed her rage. The sound startled her almost as much as the news. This wasn't supposed to happen. Her control was slipping, and she couldn't see why, couldn't see the hand gently nudging the dominoes. The second ripple was colder, deeper. An official-looking letter arrived via secure courier from Marcus. It bore the insignia of a government financial regulatory body. It requested clarification and supporting documentation regarding specific, large-sum transfers between Thorn Industries subsidiaries and certain offshore entities mentioned by name, Muffy Holdings Limited being one. The letter was polite, procedural. It was also a seismic warning shot. Marcus called Evelyn, his voice uncharacteristically shaky. Evelyn, they know about the Caymans. They named the accounts. The blood drained from Evelyn's face. The Scotch glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor, mirroring the paperweight's fate, spreading amber liquid across the polished wood like blood. The offshore accounts were her ultimate safety net, her private hoard, meticulously hidden. Or so she thought. How? Who? Paranoia, cold and sharp, pierced her bubble of invincibility. She scanned the room wildly, as if expecting an intruder. The luxurious suite felt suddenly like a gilded cage. The foundations of her world, built on arrogance and perceived secrecy, were trembling. The revenge wasn't loud, but its echoes were just beginning to reverberate through the halls of power and privilege Evelyn Thorn had always commanded. And the source, the quiet architect of this gathering storm, was at that very moment, downstairs, calmly folding napkins into intricate swans, her expression serene, her eyes holding the quiet satisfaction of a plan unfolding exactly as intended. The sweetest part was still to come, the moment Evelyn realized her ruin wasn't an accident, but a design. And by then, it would be far too late. The shards of crystal glittered like malicious stars on the suite's dark wood floor, reflecting the frantic energy of the woman pacing around them. Evelyn Thorne's carefully constructed facade of icy control had fractured. The polite, terrifying letter from the regulatory body, naming Muffy Holdings Ltd., with chilling specificity, lay on the coffee table like an unexploded bomb. Marcus's voice, tinny and laced with panic through the phone speaker, detailed the nightmare. They've issued a formal notice of inquiry, Evelyn. They want everything, transaction histories, source documentation, board approvals for the transfers. They've flagged the accounts. Nothing moves in or out without their scrutiny now. Scrutiny? Evelyn spat the word, her voice raw. It's a witch hunt. Who did this? Who told them? Paranoia, a gnawed at her insides. She scanned the room again, the luxurious furnishings suddenly feeling like surveillance equipment. Had Marcus betrayed her? A disgruntled board member? That persistent journalist, Carter? The possibilities swirled, each more terrifying than the last. Her offshore haven wasn't just exposed, it was paralyzed. The funds she relied on for leverage, for her ultimate escape, were locked away, watched by faceless bureaucrats. Downstairs, the Grand Astoria hummed with its usual undercurrent of discreet luxury. Janine Parker moved through the afternoon routines. She replenished the complimentary biscotti at the coffee bar, her movements economical, her expression one of quiet focus. She overheard snippets of conversation, guests murmuring about the unpleasant businesswoman on 12, staff exchanging hushed, knowing glances. The ripple from Ben Carter's article was widening. A society columnist, known for her sharp pen and extensive network, had picked up a thread. Her piece wasn't about finance. It was about reputation. Asterisk the stain of chimera. Asterisk the headline read online. Asterisk Evelyn Thorne's ruthless tactics, long whispered about in boardrooms, spill into public view. Whispers of cleansing and offshore havens cast a long shadow over the Thorne legacy. Is this the face of modern business, or a relic of a greedier time? Asterisk. The article didn't just report, it judged. It linked Evelyn's business practices to her public persona, the sharp-tongued, entitled figure well known in certain elite circles. It mentioned the grand Historia, painting it as the backdrop for her latest display of power, now tainted. For Evelyn, whose social standing was as vital as her financial one, it was a devastating blow. Invitations to exclusive galas began to be quietly rescinded. Phone calls from her usual social circle went unanswered. She was becoming toxic, a pariah not just financially, but socially. The gilded cage of her privilege was showing its bars. Janine's next intervention was surgical. Within Evelyn's private correspondence folder, nestled amongst vitriolic emails to rivals and sycophantic notes to potential allies, Janine found a different kind of gold. Evelyn's desperate attempts to salvage her social standing. There were groveling emails to the chairwoman of a prestigious charity ball Evelyn had been publicly dropped from. Asterisk, a terrible misunderstanding, malicious lies spread by competitors, my family's long-standing commitment. Asterisk, the tone was a jarring contrast to Evelyn's usual arrogance, laced with a pathetic, unfamiliar humility. Worse, there were emails to an old-school friend, Arabella Stanton, whose husband sat on the board of the museum Evelyn desperately wanted back in favor with. Asterisk, Arabella, darling, you must speak to Charles. This Carter creature is a hack. Those accounts are perfectly legal, complex estate planning. You know how these things are misconstrued. Remember that weekend in St. Tropez? I helped you with asterisk. The email trailed off, hinting at some long-buried secret of favor owed. Janine didn't leak these emails wholesale. That would be crude. Instead, she became a curator of humiliation. The most abject, pleading paragraph from Evelyn's email to the charity chairwoman, the one begging for reinstatement and blaming malicious lies, was anonymously forwarded to Ben Carter and two other gossip columnists. The reference to the Street Tropez weekend in the email to Arabella was isolated and sent only to Arabella Stanton's private email address, with the subject line, asterisk, does Charles remember Street Tropez too? Asterisk, no threat, just a chilling reminder of a vulnerability Evelyn had foolishly documented. The effects were immediate and brutal. Evelyn's phone rang incessantly. Arabella Stanton's voice, usually languid and amused, was icy with fury. What is the meaning of this, Evelyn? Are you threatening me? After everything? Charles is livid. Consider our acquaintance terminated. The call ended with a decisive click that echoed in Evelyn's hollow silence. Minutes later, the charity chairwoman issued a public statement. Asterisk, after careful consideration, the committee has decided Ms. Thorne's current situation makes her participation incompatible with the spirit of our event. We wish her well in resolving her personal matters. Asterisk, the phrasing was a masterclass in polite annihilation. Evelyn wasn't just dropped. She was framed as damaged goods. Panic morphed into a suffocating dread. Evelyn felt watched, hunted. Every staff member's neutral glance felt like accusation. The cheerful lobby music grated on her nerves. She started jumping at sudden noises. Her luxurious suite became a prison. She tried to access funds from a different, smaller offshore account, a true emergency backup, only to find it, too, inexplicably frozen. A terse notification cited possible links to entities under investigation. The bureaucratic quagmire was closing in from all sides. Her lawyers talked in circles, demanding exorbitant retainers while offering little hope. Marcus sounded increasingly harried and distant. The walls were closing in, and she couldn't see who was pushing them. One afternoon, driven by a desperate need for control, any control, Evelyn descended to the lobby. She needed to assert dominance, to remind herself, in this suddenly hostile world, who she was. She spotted Janine near the concierge desk, calmly arranging brochures. The sight of the quiet, efficient waitress, seemingly untouched by the chaos swirling around Evelyn, ignited a spark of irrational fury. All her pent-up terror and rage focused on this familiar, unassuming target. Asterisk, Evelyn's voice cut through the lobby's murmur, sharp and shrill. Heads turned. She stalked towards Janine, her designer clothes slightly rumpled, her eyes wide and bloodshot. What are you smirking at? Do you find this amusing? My difficulties? She stopped inches from Janine, radiating manic energy. Is it satisfying for your kind? Seeing someone brought low by lies and envy. Janine turned slowly, her posture erect but non-confrontational. Her dark eyes met Evelyn's wild gaze. There was no fear, no anger. Just that same unnerving stillness, a deep, observing calm. I'm ensuring our guests have the information they need, Ms. Thorne, she replied, her voice low, even perfectly polite. Is there something I can assist you with? The calmness was gasoline on Evelyn's fire. Assist? You? You couldn't assist a fly out of a web. Evelyn's voice rose, trembling. You stand there, judging me with your silent little superiority. I see it. I see how you all look at me now. Like I'm contaminated. Spittle flew from her lips. The concierge discreetly signaled security. Guests stared openly, whispering. Janine didn't flinch. She held Evelyn's gaze, a faint, almost imperceptible curve touching the corner of her lips. Not a smile. Something colder, more knowing. I assure you, Ms. Thorne, Janine said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying perfectly in the sudden hush. No one here is judging you more harshly than you are judging yourself. The words landed with the weight of truth. They stripped away the pretense, exposing the raw fear beneath Evelyn's rage. Security arrived, two large men moving with practiced calm. Ms. Thorne, perhaps you'd like to return to your suite? One suggested firmly, stepping between her and Janine. Evelyn recoiled as if burned. She looked from his security guards to Janine's impassive face, then to the ring of shocked, disapproving guests. The last shreds of her dignity evaporated. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She was the spectacle. She was the one causing a scene. The woman who demanded invisibility from others was now painfully, humiliatingly visible in her downfall. A strangled sob escaped her lips. She turned and fled towards the elevators, shoulders hunched, the echo of Janine's quiet, devastating words ringing in her ears. Asterisk, judging you more harshly than you are judging yourself. Asterisk. Janine watched her go, then calmly resumed arranging the brochures. The lobby slowly returned to its usual rhythm, the whispers fading. But the image of Evelyn Thorne, unraveled and publicly broken, was seared into the memory of those who witnessed it. For Janine, the moment held a profound, quiet satisfaction. Evelyn hadn't just been exposed financially and socially. She had been forced to confront her own reflection in the eyes of those she despised, and she had shattered. The revenge was unfolding with a terrible, elegant precision. The final act, Janine knew, involved not just destruction, but revelation. Evelyn Thorne needed to know exactly who had engineered her ruin and why. The sweetness of that moment, the utter, unexpected shock of it, would be the culmination of every slight, every racist barb, every assumption of superiority. And it was very, very close. The silence in Suite 1201 was thick, broken only by the frantic skittering of Evelyn Thorne's thoughts and the distant, muffled sounds of the city below. A world continuing its indifferent rhythm while hers lay in ruins. The luxurious space felt alien, hostile. Every polished surface seemed to reflect her humiliation. The shattered crystal still littering the floor near the fireplace. The accusatory gleam of her untouched laptop. The empty Scotch bottle lying on its side. The social invitations had stopped. The lawyer's calls offered only deepening dread and mounting bills. The regulatory inquiry was a hungry beast consuming her resources and reputation. Her name, once synonymous with power, was now a punchline whispered behind manicured hands. Paranoia had become her constant companion. She jumped at room service knocks, scrutinized every housekeeping staff member who entered. Certain one of them was the hidden enemy feeding information to her tormentors. Was it Marcus saving himself? A rival she crushed? That persistent journalist, Carter? The possibilities were a torture chamber. Her reflection in the vast window showed a gaunt, haunted woman. The brittle armor of entitlement finally cracked open to reveal raw terror beneath. A soft knock, different from room service, punctured the suffocating quiet. It wasn't demanding. It was firm, deliberate. Evelyn froze, heart hammering against her ribs. Security? More lawyers? She crept to the door, peering through the peephole with one bloodshot eye. Janine Parker stood in the corridor, not in her uniform, but in simple, elegant street clothes, a dark sweater, tailored trousers. Her expression was calm, composed, utterly unreadable. No trae, no cleaning cart. Just herself. Panic warred with bewildered fury. What was she doing here? Evelyn wrenched the door open. What? She rasped, her voice rough. What do you want? Come to gloat? To see the wreckage? Her hand trembled on the door handle. Janine didn't step forward immediately. She met Evelyn's wild gaze with that same unnerving stillness. May I come in, Miss Thorne? Her voice was low, even. It wasn't a request from a subordinate. It was a statement. The sheer audacity, the shift in power radiating from this woman she dismissed as insignificant, momentarily stunned Evelyn. She stumbled back, allowing Janine entry. The door clicked shut, sealing them in the tomb-like suite. Janine walked slowly towards the center of the room, her gaze sweeping the disarray, the shards, the bottle, the scattered papers, with detached observation. She stopped near the window, turning to face Evelyn, who hovered near the door, looking small and cornered. I imagine you've been wondering, Janine began, her tone conversational, almost gentle, yet chilling in its clarity. Who did this? Who accessed your cloud storage? Who leaked Project Chimera? Who alerted the authorities about Muffy Holdings? Who shared your private pleas? Evelyn's breath hitched. The words landed like physical blows, confirming her deepest fears. You? The word was a disbelieving whisper, then a choked scream. Asterisk you. Asterisk how? How could you possibly? You're nothing. A servant. A faint, cold smile touched Janine's lips, the first real crack in her serene facade. A servant who sees everything, who hears everything, especially the careless words spoken by those who believe themselves unseen. Like your password hint, like your confidential deals discussed over Eggs Benedict, like your tablet perpetually unlocked. Evelyn swayed, grasping the back of a chair for support. The sheer, impossible scale of her own carelessness, exploited by the woman she considered furniture, was a crushing weight. But why? She gasped, the question ripped from her core. Because I spoke sharply? Everyone does. Janine's eyes hardened, the calm replaced by a glacial intensity. Spoke sharply? She took a single step forward. You didn't speak sharply, Miss Thorne. You wielded cruelty like a weapon. You mocked my competence. You implied innate clumsiness. You called me languid. You sneered typical. You did it because you believed your skin, your wealth, made you superior. Because you believed I was less. Each word was precise, deliberate, stripping away Evelyn's justifications. You believed I was invisible, incapable of understanding, incapable of striking back. She paused, letting the truth sink in, watching the dawning horror in Evelyn's eyes. This, Janine gestured around the ruined suite, encompassing the financial chaos, the social exile, the paranoia, isn't just about your offshore accounts or your predatory deals. This is the consequence of treating people like they are nothing. This is the bill coming due for every racist sneer, every assumption of superiority. Evelyn sank into the chair, her legs giving way. The fight drained out of her, replaced by a hollow, sickening realization. The enemy wasn't a rival or a hacker. It was the quiet waitress whose dignity she'd trampled. The revenge wasn't random misfortune. It was meticulously crafted, born from her own arrogance, and delivered with devastating precision. What do you want? Evelyn whispered, broken. Janine looked down at her for a long, silent moment. The fury was gone, replaced by a profound, weary contempt. I want you to know, she said softly. I want you to lie awake in whatever small room you end up in, knowing exactly who did this and why. Knowing that the nothing you dismissed saw everything, understood everything, and held the power to break you. That's the sweetest part. She turned and walked towards the door. She paused, hand on the handle, not looking back. "Enjoy the rest of your stay, Miss Thorne." The words were polite, the final, perfect twist of the knife. The door opened and closed with a soft, definitive click. Evelyn Thorne was left alone in the crushing silence of her gilded ruin, the echo of Janine's words, and the devastating knowledge of her own downfall at the hands of the woman she deemed insignificant, the only company she deserved. Outside, Janine Parker walked through the glittering lobby of the Grand Astoria, unseen once more, the ghost of justice satisfied, finally free.